As England and Argentina prepare to battle for a place in the semi-final in the World Cup, it is time to go back in time and talk about a rivalry which seems to be made in heaven. No, and not the heaven which had Maradona's hand of God, as he soared over a towering Peter Shilton and punched the ball into the goal in the 1986 World Cup. It was the quarterfinals of the World Cup in a very hot and hostile atmosphere because it was the first World Cup after the Falklands War between Argentina and England, which had spread over 74 days. So there was a lot going on between the two nations, a lot going on between the two teams when this quarterfinal happened and this goal happened. And it was just before Maradona's the goal which Maradona scored after dribbling past five English players and which was later on judged as the goal of the century by FIFA. Maybe the English were gutted, or maybe the skills displayed by Maradona were just beyond them to understand as to what exactly was happening. But whatever, the rivalry continued. Years later, Maradona in his book admitted that the victory felt like a symbolic revenge for the Falklands War. Writing, and he wrote that defeating England, the English football team, was like beating a country, not a football team. But do you know that there was another quarter final, and much before the battle at Ajitaka in 1986. Now, this quarter final led to implementation of a rule which most of us take as something for granted, and we do not even know that it did not exist before this quarter final between England and Argentina. But I'll come to that interesting trivia in a moment. But before that, let us go back in history and time and enjoy a rivalry forged through 6 decades of memory, controversy, and emotion, where football has repeatedly produced moments that transcend the game itself. Remember David Beckham's tears on being red carded in the 1998 World Cup after Diego Simeone had simulated a normal flicking of boots into something which was very massive, a sort of a massive foul. I mean, we have seen the simulations going around in football games for a very long time, but that led to the red carding of David Beckham. This red card overshadowed the brilliance of michaelowen, who had announced his arrival on the international stage by scoring a superb goal as the game between England and Argentina had just begun. He was an 18-year-old, but he simply rode over all tackles as he covered half the distance of the field before scoring that goal. It was like an English knife going through an Argentinian butter. But that red card of Beckham and later on the defeat of England on penalty shootout against the Argentinians made David Beckham the villain of the story. But football, like history, has a habit of rewriting its own stories. 4 years later, David Beckham had his redemptions against who else? Argentina. But as his penalty against Argentina sent the Argentinians back home in the elimination rounds itself in 2002. That was a very low point for the Argentinian football team. Every generation has inherited its own version of England versus Argentina. And for the first time, Lionel Messi will stand in the middle of it. This 8-time Ballon d'Or winner has conquered every challenge in international football, every challenge the game has thrown before him. England has somehow been missing from the story. So now it is England versus Argentina as Messi stands in the middle of it. And with a place in the World Cup final at stage, football's greatest rivalry has found a new man in the form of Lionel Messi. But before that, the trivia I was talking about, and the game, the rivalry which led to a change in the rules of the game. Now let's come back to that. And what was the trigger for an important change which is now taken as normal? I mean, it is a given. It was the World Cup as England and Argentina faced off in the quarter-final at the iconic Wembley Stadium in London. There was a lot going on before the match. And in the 35th minute of that highly aggressive game and physical game, West German referee Kreitling abruptly ordered Argentina's captain Antonio Ratin off the pitch. Because cards did not exist yet, the dismissal had to be delivered verbally. So I'll explain that again. Till 1966, there was no card system which we see everywhere, the yellow cards, the red cards. The referee used to send off the players verbally. The referee claimed that Ratin had been violent with his tongue because the player had been looking at him with malicious intent and was constantly complaining. Ratin, on his part, he was the captain, he insisted that he was simply attempting to speak to the referee because he was wearing the captain's armband. He was demanding the official interpreter to understand the referee's decisions. Ratin did not speak German or English, and Kreitling spoke no Spanish. So the absolute communication gap. Furious at the perceived injustice, Ratin refused to leave the field. His defiance delayed the match for around 9 to 10 minutes as the FIFA officials came onto the pitch, his teammates argued, and finally the police had to escort him off the pitch. But Ratin was not over yet. He committed two legendary acts of defiance, of protest that enraged the English crowd, which resorted to booing of the Argentinian captain. First, he crumpled and twisted the corner flag, which featured the British Union Jack. Now you understand the anger which must have erupted in the crowd. And then he walked over to the royal box and sat down on the exclusive royal red carpet reserved for Queen Elizabeth II. English fans were furious by now, and they started to throw objects as he finally walked down the tunnel. The English manager, Alf Ramsey, no saint himself, he later labelled the visitors as animals and told his players not to exchange jerseys with them. In Argentina, the defeat later on became known as the theft of the century, a grievance that has endured for 6 decades now. It was this incident which led English referee Ken Aston to come up with the idea while he stopped at a traffic light and he could see the red light, the yellow light, the green light, and he understood that this was a universal language. Everybody could understand as to what the cards meant. The red meant you could no longer play. You had to stop and leave. The yellow was caution. This system was then introduced in the 1970 World Cup. For 24 years since the last Argentina England match, and nearly 60 years have passed since this incident where the Argentinian captain Ratin was sent off, and which led to the card system. Incidentally, Ratin passed away a couple of days ago only. This time, however, the spotlight is entirely on Lionel Messi. He is stepping onto the world sports, one of the most how should I put it, the most hostile rivalry. The Argentinian supporters, they are not going to give up. They will again sing what is known as the Muka Cos, the anthem celebrating both Maradona and Messi, while remembering the soldiers who laid down their lives in the Falklands War. England, however, believe that they are on the cusp of history and they can finally write a chapter which will be based on triumph rather than heartbreaks, which have been going on for a very long time with them now. Maradona is gone. Beckham has long since stopped playing. and he's in the crowd. Diego Simeone, who led to Beckham's dismissal, is often seen in the Argentinian box. Politics is no longer does not carry the same hostility which it did in 1986, and the stadiums are different, the crowds are different, but rivalries being rivalries, they never grow old. When England meet Argentina at a World Cup, history, it is said, never stays in the past. It walks on to the pitch before the players do. Thank you.